All right, hello everyone. My name is Jeff, and this is our Cyberpunk Edgerunners review. With me, as always, is Jacoby, aka Kobe. How's it going, Kobe?
Great. Happy to be here. Happy to be talking about this one in its entirety. I think this was interesting.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've done like an actual total season review, so it's um, where to even start? I guess my first question to you is, what has been your exposure to the Cyberpunk IP in general?
None. I had no exposure to how big this franchise was beforehand going into this, so I didn't know that this was like a situation because you showed me Ghost in the Shell. Remember, like a long time ago. But when you showed me Ghost in the Shell, you didn't show me like the original Ghost in the Shell. You told me that like one-off
Mm.
one with like the smiling man, and I thought like, okay, this is what Ghost in the Shell is. Then I learned afterwards that like, no, this is just an offshoot of a much larger IP, and that's what kind of this was too, which I was surprised. Which I get, like this world is rich, it's vibrant, there's a lot going on in it, so it makes sense that there's a lot of you can do a lot with it. What about you?
Yeah, so my first exposure to the Cyberpunk IP is through the video game Cyberpunk 2077, which came out like, a few years ago now, I think. And I'm not sure if you know like the lore behind that game, but essentially upon release, it was horribly, horribly buggy. It was a huge technical mess, crashed a lot, all kinds of glitches, to the point where the PlayStation Store, and I believe Xbox did this as well, started honoring refunds for it because it was
Wow.
basically an incomplete product, which they don't usually do after a certain amount of time. And of course, CD Projekt Red, the company who made Cyberpunk 2077, also started issuing refunds. And it was a huge disappointment because it was a game that was announced some time ago, I think close to maybe even a decade ago, when they released kind of like the first news about it. And then like a few years later, they released like one trailer, and then they went dark for a long time. And so there was this big assumption that this is going to be like this great, big, epic game, especially from a company like CD Projekt Red, who made the Witcher franchise, or the Witcher video game franchise, it is. They made the Witcher trilogy, which is a huge success, especially Witcher 3. I myself was one of those people that were really, really disappointed with the game. I bought the hype, I pre-ordered it, I was like, yeah, it's going to be awesome. And then I played the game and I was like, oh, and yeah, I was one of those people that got a refund. I played it, I beat the game, and I would say my assessment of the game is even without all the technical glitches, the game itself was very flawed in terms of its story and its writing.
Hmm.
But
How
I
much was the my question is how much is the game related to this in terms of like, oh, hardware, you get cyber upgrades and you have a chance to glitch out and go crazy if you get too much of it. Is that a through line of the game as well?
not so much. The game's main story is mostly about how I guess it has more like questions of like mortality in terms of like what is consciousness and stuff like that, because you essentially play the game with Keanu Reeves living in your brain. He lives in like a chip that's in your brain, and he like
Oh, that's this
uh,
game.
yeah,
I
exactly.
forgot that this was this game. Okay,
Yeah, and
yeah.
he occasionally shows up and he like he harasses you and stuff like that. So it's that's more of the story of that game. But the cyber psychosis thing, that's totally a part of the universe, and it is mentioned in the game, and there are quests related to that. Um, but yeah, the Cyberpunk's origin actually stems back to an old tabletop RPG which came out in the 70s, I think. But yeah, so it's a very old franchise and IP actually, and I think CD Projekt Red is they really just revived it and retooled it for their own purposes, and they're also the producers, I believe, of this anime. Um,
That's cool. And there's been no other anime before, right? Like this was like the
mm,
first actual anime adaptation of Cyberpunk.
yes, that's
First, like
correct.
that's cool because I think this world fits so well in anime form. Like that actually surprises me in terms of that. Like
Mhm.
if you would have said like there was a bunch of other anime about this, I would be like, yeah, that makes sense because it fits. But that's fascinating.
Yeah, and I've had thoughts about that as well, where it's like I feel like kind of like future cyberpunk dystopias or just futuristic kind of settings like this in general are not very explored um, in anime in general. I mean, if there's one genre that I think really dominates the space, it's the fantasy genre, right? I mean, it's,
Yeah.
at least today, at least now, and even in the past. But yeah, a lot of it is like fantasy, like isekais are very huge now, and basically all isekai are like, yeah, you go to a world and you learn magic, and there's swords and armor and shit like that. But yeah, the cyberpunk kind of genre hasn't been explored very well. I mean, you mentioned Ghost in the Shell earlier. There's that other one which I'm drawing a blank on. It's the one where it's like they detect your crime before it happens,
Oh,
kind of thing.
Psychopaths.
Psychopaths.
Yeah, Psychopaths.
Yeah, there. Akira,
Which I
was
like.
that?
I
Was
like
that like a
Psychopaths.
cyberpunk one? I don't remember.
Which one?
Akira, the old movie. I don't
I think
remember
it
if
was
that's
like
one.
it was futuristic, right? So
Mhm.
it's like it's in that world.
Yeah, I feel like there's just so much potential for the setting that anime has not explored yet, and hopefully, this kind of show inspires more of that.
I hope
Um,
so too, but I hope in that realm, like instead of like making a lot of different animes where I have to like figure out the rules of the world for everything, like I hope that they just like it may not even be this like cyberpunk, but I guess maybe it should be cyberpunk, but like just pick one world and do a lot of offshoots in that. Like
mhm.
that's like with all the fantasy stuff too. It's like I get lost in a lot of those because there's always a different world to go into and learning the rules of how that world works. And like I would
Right.
just prefer if I know the world going into it, but like see different sides of each one being explored through a different
Mhm.
anime. That's more appealing to me. But like obviously, I think I might be in the minority there.
So then let me ask you this: not knowing anything about the cyberpunk IP, did you have issues kind of stepping into this world?
The first episode I think was a little rough in terms of just like I was like I don't understand cyber like psychosis and like
Yeah.
and the hierarchy of power that's like here with like all these people. It's like you can kind of get the
Mhm.
gist. Um, but what I think this show probably does well in terms of that is making everything set through the eyes of David. Because while I didn't understand a lot of the rules and functions of the society at first, like I cared enough about David to be like I want to see him do that. And that's he also was being introduced to this world as well, so we saw it through his eyes, which
Mhm.
is that's
Exactly.
usually how these animes go, right? Like there's always someone who doesn't know. It's like who has to be told all this stuff
Mhm.
so the audience can know. But like David was likable enough to be like, okay, I can keep watching, and then enough to where when I did know about it and I understood the rules around like episode 4, like episode 5, I'm like, all right, I'm in now. Like I get it. Like I'm invested in this world. What about you?
Yeah, so knowing a little bit about this world already and stepping into it and seeing this new take on it, it actually made me appreciate the cyberpunk world even more. Um, and I think it's just kind of like one of those things where it's like you read something once, you don't really get it, but then you read it again, and then it's like, oh, it makes total sense. And I think that's kind of the experience that I had here, where I played through the Cyberpunk game once, and I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. And then while watching this anime, I'm like, okay, I get the themes, I get what this world is really about. And maybe I was just too dense to understand all this going through the first time, but really, yeah, I think the anime did a good job of nailing the setting and showing us what Night City is all about, what
Yeah.
being a cyberpunk is all about, and yeah, all the relationships between all the different people. I definitely got like very like similar like the themes that happen in the show happen a lot in the game as well.
Mm.
Kind of like the heist that goes wrong,
Yeah.
the fixer that betrays you,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. It's the Night City, just being an awful
Yeah.
dystopian
Awful
hellhole to
play
live in,
if
and
you're not
nobody
super
wins.
rich. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Nobody really wins. The corporations rule everything. That kind of thing. That flavor of this kind of setting, I think, is actually really cool. And again, yeah, not very well explored. Yeah, and more than just anime, really. I think this kind of setting, I think, actually would be very popular in other formats, maybe TV shows, maybe movies, just because I think it is a kind of a reflection of the real world, this sort of kind of corporate hellhole.
Yeah, yeah, everything just was like, and that's why what I generally liked about this, and I think my favorite part about this is the through line of the chromeware that they wear. It's like all these people who are attaching all this chromeware to themselves. It just seems like there's a running theme of they know that their life is horrible, right? And they know that by doing this to themselves, they are upgrading, but eventually they will die. Like there is no sort of we're not upgrading ourselves in order to become rich and famous and be on top of everything, right? So it's like I don't think they ever like really strive to be like out of the game, or except for Lucy, right? Like except for her, but like everyone else is like this is our life, and we're just going to keep upgrading. We're going to keep being better, but also the through line of just like yeah, eventually we're going to go insane and have to be put down, but like.
Mhm.
what else are we going to do with our lives, right? Like it's like what else is there? So of course
Yeah.
we got to keep upgrading, and they're kind of addicted to it, right? Which is what is interesting for all of these crew members of this crew.
Yeah, going out in flames is another like tenet of cyberpunk in general, and I think this even stems way back to the tabletop RPG. Is like, there is this like big world, there's this big setting, and there are different roles in here. Like there's like fixers, and there's ripper docs, and there's regular people that work for trauma team and all that stuff. But cyberpunk, like that archetype character is what this is about. Is what this franchise is about. Is about these mercenaries who are kind of fighting back against the system, who want to make it big, but who always ultimately die in flames at the end.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a tragic archetype in the story, but really fascinating, and I think it makes for some really, really good stories.
Especially when it's like we're following this crew, right? Like this crew is like our focal point of everything, but like really the big war it doesn't even have anything to do with this crew. It's with two warring corporations, right?
Yeah.
Like those are the two ones that is really the two fighting each other, but we don't see that at all. Like we just know that they're doing jobs for these ones, and like vaguely referenced about how these companies are trying to outdo each other in terms of chromeware, but it's like that's never really the focus, right? Like of everything, which is just kind of cool. It's just like, yeah, this is all about corporations fighting each other, and the low level people who are actually fighting the wars and getting dirty, but like, and that's, I think, that's a cool thing.
Yeah, kind of focusing on the little man, so to speak.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, what did you think of? So we have another little series where see if an anime passes the 4-episode test. What did you think of the 4 episodes of this show? Do you think it was enough to hook you in?
Because if it was just 3 episodes, I think I might have been like, yeah, this is okay. But like episode 4, I'm looking at the episodes right now. Episode 4 is like, okay, it takes 3 episodes. Like the first episode is the introduction. We meet David and everything, and we see his mom, and was like, oh, his mom dies, which is pretty surprising. And then, but of course, he's going to get the chromeware and upgrade it and be like, yeah, I've got to do this. Second episode, it's when he kind of meets Lucy, and it's kind of a nice meet cute at first. And it's like, oh, okay, this is okay. And then
Right.
Episode 3 is like him trying it out with like Maine and everything. I'm like, that's okay. But episode 4, when he's fully in the gang and he's like learning from the gang and like a full part of it, that's when it was really like, that's when I was like, all right, I'm gonna watch this whole thing, like for everything. Like, but I think if it was just 3 episodes, I was just like, yeah, this is fine. But episode 4, I think, really pushed me over the edge. What about you? Did you? I think overall, it's safe to say that you liked it, right? The show.
Oh yeah, I would say I liked it from the very beginning. I think. Yeah, I mean, even from the first episode, I think the first episode really gives you a sense of the world and kind of the reasoning why someone would become a cyberpunk, because Night City is so shitty.
Yeah,
everything's run by greedy corporations, and like the little guy always gets squeezed out, and so it's like turning to a life of lawlessness makes sense.
Yeah.
If you were in these situations, if you lived that life, and I think that really nailed the target on the head. And like you said, yeah, David is likable enough. He's just just a down on his luck kid, very I don't know about relatable, I guess.
Yeah, I guess
just like
true. He's very edgy.
But he's like, he's kind of like the Peter Parker, right? He's like down on his luck. He's a smart kid, but because of circumstances outside of control, he's not really granted the opportunities that might be afforded to him in a different scenario. And then of course his mom dies, and that's very tragic. And so
which
for
I like
me,
as the inciting incident when his mom dies, because it's not like it's not dark, but it's not darkly funny. I don't know what it is, but the fact that she dies, and like not like she's obviously in this world a little bit, right? Because she's selling it, but that's something that's not explored. But she technically dies on accident because Night City is so shitty. Like, yeah, it's just like 2 warring people are fighting each other, and they're caught in the crossfire. Like that's what causes her death, not the fact that she was seemed like a dealer of this black arms sort of stuff, but just. It sucks. This is what you're gonna get in Night City.
Random happenstance. Yeah, and that's again another, I think, essential tenet of the setting is Night City as a character, basically. And Night City is this kind of void that like swallows everything and will always eat you alive no matter how hard you try to struggle against it. And and I think they nailed that right away from the get-go. And I was hooked from episode 1, and I liked the show all the way through to the end. I liked it so much that I went back and I played the game again.
Oh wow!
I'm actually playing the game right now. I bought it again. I have the next gen upgrade, so it's a little bit better. It's all like a lot of the bugs are fixed frame rate is a lot better. And it's crazy because this show is so good, it made me go back to a game that I previously basically hated so much that I got a refund for it. And now I'm playing the game and I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, I think it's one of those things where it's like when you get the setting and you kind of get what they're going for, it's like a lot more enjoyable. At least that's what's going on for me right now. So I'm actually having a pretty good time with the game this time around because of the show.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. That's pretty cool. All right. I have, in terms of questions, just fun questions. I have, what was the best Chrome upgrade? What was the coolest in your eyes?
The coolest. I mean, it's got to be the Sandevistan, right? Like the very first thing he gets, just slow down time. The animation of like him, like like running circles around all the guys was really cool. I mean, I guess since I've just mentioned animation, I gotta say, and the animation spot on.
Oh yeah, it was
Studio
great.
Trigger. I'm a huge fan of the studio. They made Kill la Kill. They made Promare. They didn't technically make Gurren Lagann, but the people who worked on Gurren Lagann went on to found Studio Trigger, and you can kind of see that art style imprinted on Gurren Lagann on everything else in that studio. And yeah, what I love about Studio Trigger's stuff is like it's so they are really good at making over the top exciting action sequences.
Yeah.
And also just making things look really moody. Like they do a lot of work with like the way like they frame scenes, like the camera angles, the colors.
Yeah.
Their character designs are always great. And yeah, I think this is just such a good studio to pick to represent this world. I think if it was anyone else, it would not be this good.
It'd probably be like muddy and darker, right? But it's like it's so vibrant, but it's like, but also you never lose track of what's going on. Like they do well of like framing everything, where like the action is so over the top, and there's always a hail of bullets, and they're all shooting at each other. But it's like you can still. It's not just a mash of colors and just everything combined.
Yes,
it's still like easy to track.
I mean, like just look at the like our background shots right here, right? You got I forgot the fixture's name already. The guy Faraday, like that moody pink lighting, like. It's like vibrant neon, right? But still you could sense like a sinisterness around it. And then Lucy in my background, of course, it's like light shining down on her. It's always like this contrast between like very bright neon colors but like this sinister dark undertone, which I think is like perfect. That's like totally what Night City is all about. Anyways, let me throw the question back to you. What is your favorite cyberware modification? Actually, how about this? What would you get? What kind of cyber modification would you get if you had the choice?
Yeah, a lot of the choices to like get like I don't think I would after episode 7, after Maine dies and there's a bit of a time jump, when I think it's a bit of surprise to see David like hulked up like he has like his basically all body. I was like, I don't think I'd get that. Like, it was just like, that just looks like
that's too much.
That's too much. But like, and I'm thinking like in my picture right now with Faraday, like he got 3 eyes. Like, what's the point? Like, what is it? What do you get? Like, what is?
And why are they all on one side?
Yeah, like it was like, what are you seeing? It's not like they analyze things, do they? Like it was, I was curious about that part.
Yeah. They're all just painted on. That's not even real cyberware. He's just posing.
I like I did like Maine's big hands. Like I think those were kind of cool, and I liked how because Rebecca got them right. That's what she installed on herself.
Oh,
afterwards.
That's a good question. Did she get those hands?
Yeah.
I don't know if those were his specifically. I never thought about that, but they could be.
Yeah, I thought that was her. So I think those are kind of cool to have and useful. But like, what else would I want to upgrade? Like, it seems like you replace everything at a certain point. That's what you lead up to, because that's technically the bad guy at the end, right? It's just like a full cyber
Adam Smasher.
And it's I guess that's a side question. It's like, was his introduction too late? Because it's weird that how he's technically the bad guy ish that they fight, but it's like there's no real mention. I like how they tied it in. It's just like, oh, the Sandestin was supposed to be for him. Like that's what it was being like transported to.
Or the big robot suit was supposed to be.
Oh yeah, sorry, that's what I meant, not the Sandestin. The big robot suit was supposed to be for him. So I guess that like makes sense. But it was just like, it's interesting that, and the way that it was cut for the first time, because like the first time you see Adam Smasher, then it cuts to that jerk kid that he's like, who like karates him in like the first episode. I'm like, oh, is this supposed to be him? Like, is this everything? No, it's just like a montage leading up to full cybernetic upgrades. But did that villain reveal work?
That's a good point, actually, because his actual reveal wasn't it just kind of like, oh yeah, Adam Smasher, he's in the room right now, and it pans over.
Conversation, so it's like, yeah, he's actually already here. Like, there's like, nope, he's like sitting in the dark to the right.
He's sitting on a couch, just chilling, listening to all this shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird introduction. I mean, again, I think I benefit from knowing the Cyberpunk lore a little bit more because I know who Atom Smasher is. He's a very iconic character in that universe.
Oh,
He
really?
is Arasaka's like uh, ace in the hole, basically, ace in the sleeve, or whatever you want to say. He's like the big baddie that they send after whoever messes with Arasaka. And his origins date all the way back to tabletop RPG. And the characters in that. So I already knew about him. If I was a first time viewer, though, I could definitely see where you're coming from. Although I would argue that he's not really the big bad. Again, I think it's just kind of like Night City is the big bad, because the confluence of events that lead up to that point is the big bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because it's Faraday, it's Arasaka, it's Militech, and then like it's the situations that they find themselves in that lead up to eventually Arasaka sicking Atom Smasher on David and his crew. So he's not really the big bad. So I don't think his reveal too late in the game is was really a flaw. So yeah, that's what I'd say on that.
Okay, yeah, I see. So I think it was, and that was, I think it was a nice reveal in terms of, I just like the contrast between him and David about like you introducing a character who seems like 100% cybernetic at this point, like for everything, and then David has reached that point basically where he's like that. So I think that's a good final battle, and I like what you said about Night City's the bad guy, because even Faraday being voiced by Giancarlo Esposito, so you kind of think like he's going to be like the big bad, but again, like he kind of is, but it's like also kind of not. So his plan. So that's maybe I had a little bit of trouble following between Arasaka and Militech in terms of what Faraday was. So he wanted to send David's crew out there to force David to put on the suit to destroy everybody there, to prove that what again? What did he want to prove?
So he was a kind of like a double agent, I believe. Like I think. Yeah. So like again, and I think this maybe is another kind of theme of Cyberpunk. I think. Or maybe it's just the theme of like these kinds of tropes where there's like a guy who you pay to do heists and stuff in general, but like this sort of like complex weaving of like backstabbing and like double agenting and like betrayal and stuff. But I think the plan was something like he was working for Militech, and then he decided that he was screwing them over. He went to Arasaka, and then his plan was to, and what Arasaka wanted was for David to put on the suit. So Faraday got David put on the suit, and therefore, I guess he was gonna somehow deliver the suit back to Arasaka, and then that's how.
Did nobody think of the after plan? Like, yeah, let's put David in the suit, right? That's perfect. It's like, great. Now what? Like, now he's gonna kill everybody.
Yeah, I guess it was kind of like Arasaka just wanted to see what would happen, because they were like, this guy's got great potential. Let's put him in the suit and see what happens. So
yeah. And again, we'll worry about the rest later.
Yeah, and it's kind of just like, I guess it's a reflection of how flippant Arasaka is with regards to like collateral damage. It's just like, whatever, if he kills like half the city, whatever, we know what that'll happen.
A lot of people die. A lot of people die. You know who has it worst? I think normal cops. Like, I would hate to be a normal cop in this world. Right. Like, I wouldn't do it. Like, what is? You're not going to beat any of these cyberpunks. You're fodder for a lot of these people.
Exactly.
You have to wait for like the any sort of like. I like the fact that like everything would basically cost money. Like, it's like if you had enough money, you had a private security team, you had insurance in order to fix stuff. Like, it's like that was brutal in that first episode, or the second episode. I forgot which one. Where they're just talking about like the package for your mom. Like, like, you don't have enough, but we can give you this her in a can if you want. Like, that's a cheap package.
And like this back alley crematorium where there's like some dude smoking crack next to it.
Yeah.
What did you think of the OP and the soundtrack overall?
Soundtrack, I thought I liked it, and I liked the OP. I don't think I skipped it sometimes, but like a lot of times it's like it was different than what I was expecting for this world. And if you asked me on the spot right now, I couldn't tell you how it goes, like in terms of like the tone and beat, but it's like I liked it. I think it was pretty cool. What about you?
Yeah, I generally don't like and like anything, anime, TV shows, movies where they start using like real life music, like music that's kind of like produced outside of the show. Although in this case, I think some of the songs were made for the anime. I'm not sure, but I thought the OP was really cool, really stylish. I liked that band. I can't remember their name.
Yeah, I can't remember anything about them or how it sounds, but I'll tell you, I liked it.
Yeah, and then that one song, I've been seeing this in plenty of memes lately. The I really want to stay at your house, the one where that plays with Lucy and David when they're on the moon. It's like, and it plays at the very end when David eats it. By the way, this is a spoiler review. Does anyone give a shit?
At this point, probably who watches this? This is spoilers.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, that song is really really good, and yeah, hits you in the feels.
Yeah, it gets you hyped too. I just think a lot of the songs to the music was played very well in the show.
Yeah. So overall, I really like the show.
What was your favorite part?
My favorite part, honestly, I really like the part where David and Lucy first go on the moon and the whatever they call it, brain dance, whatever, virtual reality thing. I think it was like a very nice moment of sweetness in this dark world where everything's all fucked up. And I thought it set up the relationship really well. And really happy rooting for them for the rest of the show.
Nice.
What about you?
I liked. Okay, so leading up to this, in the first episode when he goes and meets Doc, and he meets like this weird Doc guy, I was thinking like, is this like a big Back to the Future riff? Like I just thought like David is Marty and Doc is like Doc Brown that he goes to, who's like a wacky sort of guy. So it's like, is this what they're going for? Like I had no idea. But like I actually like the part at the end when David is definitely on the verge of like he's getting way too much stuff. Like it's just, everyone kind of knows that like David, you're not gonna make it. Like you keep upgrading here. And then Doc gives him that 9 times the normal dose, and he says like, here, take it all, because it doesn't matter because you're not coming back here. Like it's like this is all you have because you're you're gonna be gone next time I see you. And he's kind of sad about that. I really like that moment of just like, and that kind of tied into the theme of which I mentioned at the beginning, which I really liked. Like these people kind of know their fates and what they're leading toward, and they don't do anything to stop it because they don't have anything else. So it's like I like that scene.
On that note, I really like how they don't pussy out of that. Where it's like they say he's gonna die, or if he goes too far, that he's gonna become cyber psycho and just die, flatline, right?
Yeah.
They could have taken the easy way out. There was a moment in there at the end where I'm like, oh, is he actually gonna make it? Like Lucy's actually gonna save him from his cyber psychosis, and somehow they're gonna ride off into the sunset and go to the moon together. But no, that is not what happens, and I respect that, and I appreciate that, because it could have gone with a happy ending, but I kind of like the tragic ending, and I like that they committed to that, and they said what they said would happen happened. They did not subvert our expectations. They just like, okay, yes.
Yeah, for everything. And David's death was. Who had the saddest death, would you say?
Oh.
So a lot of people died. We have David, we have Maine, we have Kiwi, her betrayal. We had Rebecca when she got crushed at the end. I thought that was kind of surprising because it's like at that point it seems like they're going to escape. Right, and then she dies, and her brother who died, and
I guess I'm just gonna go with David's mom as the saddest death, honestly, just because like everything around it was an accident, and then the events following it, like David didn't have enough money to like save her or get her a proper funeral and stuff like that, and I think that is like a key moment, springboarding the rest of the anime was really really important. So that is, I think, the saddest death, and then, if we're not counting anyone from that's not in the crew, I guess Maine, because Maine was like a really cool, gung-ho, confident character. But then to see him at the end go totally crazy and nuts, and also just start like being really mean to his crew, I think that was the sad part, is like him breaking down in that way.
And I really like that point because like usually like a lot of the times that like in indie sort of heist things, it's like, like we're all bad guys, but we're actually one big happy family, and we actually all have hearts of gold. It's like, really, no, like sure, they were all kind of likable in their own way, but like they could be jerks to one another. Like they couldn't really trust one another, like in terms of things. And they were like, they were mean. Like Maine was a good mentor toward David, but he wasn't like this kindly. Like there was a few times where he taught him stuff. It's like, okay, sure, but then there was sometimes it's like, kid, like you're so fucking stupid, like like all that stuff. So it's like it was they didn't like soften his edges to make him this kindly mentor. It's like, no, he had his flaws. Like
Can't trust nobody in Night City.
Can't trust nobody in Night City. Yeah.
So, Why don't we rate this show? We haven't done
Okay.
that in a while. What
Yeah.
would you give this out of 5?
I think I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5. I liked it a lot. I think it's not one that I'm just like, oh, I think everybody should watch this, and that sort of thing. But it's like, I know I personally, I liked it because it's an open and shut story, which I really like. I think it
Yes.
develops the main themes very well. It was an interesting world. I can't really tell you what I would do to make it like 5-star. Like maybe if I felt like when David died and when all these people died, I'm just like, yeah, this is sad. Like it was like I'm like really affected by it. Like I was like I wasn't really affected by the deaths. I'm like, this is just a good story beat, right? Instead of being like, no, what are you doing? So I think maybe that's what would push it to a 4.5 or 5. But I'm gonna give it 4 stars.
Yeah, I'll go with 4 as well. I just solid, above average, all the way around. The character designs, by the way, I thought were really good.
Yeah.
Story, setting, soundtrack, just a really solid show that I would recommend to anybody. But yeah, not perfect, and I think for the same reason you laid out, it's just my emotional investment in it was not enough for it to be a 5 out of 5. So, but
it's
still a really good
definitely
show.
the best out of what we've like in our little mini return to Nerd Blaze. I think it's
Yeah.
definitely been the best show by far. Like I think
sure.
I can't like what like Call of the Night and Classroom of the Elites, which it's like
Right.
I said like I'm gonna go back to. It's like I've never gone back to Classroom.
Yeah, I watched a few more episodes, and I was like, yeah, actually, this show kind of sucks. Oh man. Well, anyways, yeah, thank you all who listened this far. Let us know what you thought about this show in the comments down below. Like and subscribe if you want. I don't know. I don't care. But yeah, we do like discussing it. So if you have something to say, yeah, talk to us and we'll reply. So yeah.
All right. Thank you guys.
See ya.
I was waiting for the see ya.